got a couple minutes before we actually start. So Kevin, go ahead and start the recording.
All right, let's start it.
Anybody that shows up with a late is going to they have probably heard before.
They hear it.
You can. They hear it. All
yep.
right. Well, I want to welcome everybody to our June meeting tonight. We're going to follow our kind of typical agenda. We'll have club announcements. We will not have a safety minute because Bill let me know late that his son, he didn't realize his son's baseball practice coincided with our event tonight. He had one ready, but he wasn't going to be able to make it. So we'll get the 60 minutes. We'll go right into the presentation of using a rotary part of a CNC machine. And if you don't know what a CNC machine is, Gary's going to explain it. But Gary Mundhenke, okay, Gary is going to present to us tonight. And Gary has been a key part of the production that we've been doing on the baton Kansas Police Department. So he'll get into some of that and probably just inspire you to think about some of the things that can be done with the CNC lathe. Then we'll take a short refreshment break after Gary presents to us. And then we'll get into our challenge table, which is to turn a bolt on the bias or turn a 3-point rim bolt for a cube. So we'll see what you got. And then we'll go into the show and tell table. It looks like we've got several things over there to look at. But first, you got to bear with me while I get through our announcements. And for a change, I'm going to start with some great news for the club. We have received our $4,999 donation from the Kansas City, Kansas Police Department for providing them with the backlog of police batons, approximately 70 of them just recently. That's good news. The best news is that I got Mike Thomas to kick in the promise $1 to round it off to $5,000.
Thank you, Mike.
Big thanks to Mike for the coordination, Gary for all the CNC work, and all the many members, you know who you are, who helped with the final turn, the sanding, the finishing. Kevin did the laser engraving. These batons are going to be, for a group effort, and it's going to really benefit the club. I think I did the math, and it's like 33 memberships that covers. So really awesome, really awesome. And ongoing good news is that this is going to be an ongoing donation. So we provide we can have here the backlog that we had to deal with this time. So I think we'll be able to keep up with it pretty easily. This past weekend, the remainder of the batons for this year's graduates were completed. So I think we've kind of gotten through this year's requirements outside of maybe a retirement baton or something like that. That might be the question. So great job. Thank everybody that spent a little time and effort on getting those pushed out, because that is a tremendous plus for a club. Oh, thank you. We are so let everybody know. Let's see. Our membership is still at a total of 104 paid members. We haven't really gained any over the last couple of months. So please help spread the word about the club to your friends and associates. We do need more members. That only helps. Thanks to all the members who've been working on producing bolts for the realtors and the club sales events. Don's had a lot of effort in keeping that process going. We haven't had our first presentation yet, so I don't have anything to really talk to you about on it, other than we have had a lot of production lately, including a second Lollapalooza where we left out about 21 old plates that are now dry and back there for their second turn. We did have a few members that showed up to turn spinning tops on Saturday this May. Thank you, Jerry. Thank you. I don't know that I have the word out well enough on that, but we're going to probably do that again on a couple Saturdays before we get to the Santa workshop this winter. We're going to do more topics than we've got right now. But we have got to start on. Let's see, as many of you may know, some of you may not know, Anthony Harris took a fall, and it has him slowed down on this through some recovery. He hurt a wrist and an knee, and so he's kind of hobbling right now. Those of you that were in his gold class got through the first class, didn't get to the second class because it happened the night after the first class. We will get that rescheduled. Just watch for an email on that, and if it doesn't work out, we'll get you refunded. But we do plan on doing that. I think the doctor thinks maybe not 3 weeks before Anthony's up and around a whole lot. So it may not be 3 weeks from now, but as soon as we can, we'll get that rescheduled. Another good thing that was happening this month was we finally had weather on our side for the June 1st Fridays event. Ed and I manned the tent, and there was a pretty steady flow of traffic all night long. In fact, when we were breaking down, there was still a flow of traffic because it was easy to get through the traffic to pack things up. We had a few members go. I think our total sales this time was around 600.
That's right, Chris.
So we're improving, and we're getting out there, and it's a great exposure to our club. We get to talk to everybody about our club and get a point right up the field and say we're right up there, and so people know kind of who we are and what we do.
There was some personal sales too. You did pretty well, as I remember.
Yeah, we did all right. I had people spending top spot all night long. Let's see. There was also a First Fridays event, and there will continue to be a First Fridays event at the shop again this year. Kevin attended to kind of represent our club. He told me that the attendance here was pretty slim, but if anybody's interested, I think they'll offer you an opportunity to put a table up and sell your items here.
For free.
For free. Okay, there's no commission.
Oh, there is a commission.
Okay.
But you don't, it doesn't cost you anything to set up a table. If you act as a tour guide, there's zero commission.
Okay, so if you volunteer some time, you can get rid of that commission. All right, coming soon, Elizabeth. I don't see Elizabeth here tonight. Elizabeth Wright, who is kind of our stand-in secretary while Calvin is getting through his internship. She's been working hard on an updated trifold brochure that provides information, photos, location, and meeting/open shop times that we're going to be able to hand out to prospective members at our events, and we'll have stuff in the shop here. Once we get those in hand, feel free to take a couple and hand them up to your friends. We've got a lot of photos that really what I want to focus on is having photos of different things that we can do. It's got a really good visual. So remember to thank Elizabeth when you see her. Once we get to her hands, we'll really appreciate the time that she put in. This month's challenge drawing winner. I have in here that the winner credit insert, but I upgraded that to two $10 craft supply gift certificates. Is our challenge drawing winner, and our dollar sweepstakes winner will get to choose from an abundance of prizes over there that still includes the digital book binding. So we haven't passed down yet. All right. Also, you may not notice, but there is a first turn bowl over there, bowl blank. So if somebody wanted to try to get a nice bowl out of and second turn that, and Bill Hollow brought in as a donation a nice LED light that you can use on your equipment. It's heavy weighted on one end, LED light, and gooseneck on it. So you'll get your choice. If you're in the dollar food thing. Okay, open shop. available every Saturday morning from 8:30 to 12 p.m. or later. Wednesday and Thursday evenings from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. with the exception of the third Wednesday each month. And there's been 3 times now that I showed up on that third Wednesday and wondered why the parking lot was so full, and came in and realized why the parking lot was so full. That is the night that the guild meets out here, and so we do not open turn on that night. Please help keep the shop clean if you're using it. Use the doorbell at the back door. If the front door happens to be locked, you know it's open shop time. Somebody will come back and let you in the back door, but we don't always unlock. We're in our room. We can't see who's coming in and out that door. And then last thing, please report any problems with the equipment in the shop to one of the board members or David Alexander is like our maintenance guru. So they didn't know it, he'll let us know parts or something. So membership badges here should be worn when we're in the shop. This is the way that you're easily identified as a Woodturner or guild member. That way they don't mistake you for somebody that just wandered into the building. Let's see, we had the Powermatic blade is working. The switch was replaced, but I think it got wired backwards because the switch functions exactly backwards of the way it says on the direction. You pull it on and twist and turn it off instead of twist and pull it on. So if you just go reverse of the instructions, you'll get there. But one of these days we'll get inside of it, change the wiring on that. Jerry Lane was telling me that one of the jet machines, the switch is kind of not working properly. He said sometimes when you turn it on or pull it on a second time after you turn it on or turn it off, when you pull it back on, it won't come on. And you put it back and then you do it again and it'll start up again. So it's got something going on. I'm not going to get to it. Switch it out. Switch, but you know that we're aware of that one. That gets me through open shop. Help wanted. Okay. Please consider helping out with the club sponsored activities. These are great opportunities to meet new people and the board needs member participation. Volunteer some time to benefit the club whenever possible. And I say that right before I go into the asking for volunteer time. Ed is going to be stuck. Ed and Anthony were going to be working the 10th in July. I'm not going to be able to be here in July. I'm out of town that week. But for the first Friday, which happens to fall on the 4th of July, Ed could really use some help, both with setup and breakdown, which setup usually happens around 3 in the afternoon, and breakdown is right at 9 p.m. And also, if somebody wanted to be in the tent and help work the sales that night, I'm sure they could use an additional person there at the tent. The tent's, like I said, tent's great exposure for the club. So if you have an opportunity and don't have any major plans that night, I'm sure there'll be fireworks you'll be able to see from down there somewhere. Let Ed know, or talk to me, and I'll get you lined up. We still need some additional shop openers and backup openers, especially while Anthony's recovering. I was told that Thursday night we had no true opener. We worked, Terry worked it out, but we didn't really have anybody here to open or close. That, that's something that a reality if we don't have Anthony's consistency of being here. So keep in mind if you are pretty consistent in being here on Wednesday or Thursday night, consider just deciding one of those nights and becoming the opener. I'll go through anybody that wants to be an opener. I'll go through your requirements as far as what you got to do in the shop. It's pretty minimal, but there's a few things that we kind of keep our eyes out on. Let's see. Bill Sykes is always looking for members' photos and content to share on our social media accounts. He sent me in his email when he said he couldn't be here at the email or at the meeting. He sent me a nice statement on how to contact him and where to send information. And I said, that's great, Bill. I'll get you the next month. I've already got the PowerPoint for tonight. So next month I'll have a little more information on how to contact Bill, but it's not hard, and I'm sure I can get you there. Just let me know. Oh, and Mike Thomas is still trying to fill up the rest of our calendar. We're almost there, but we're still filling up the remainder months of the last of 2025. So we've got a demonstration to share if you know a demonstrator, or if you have a demonstration you would like to see, talk to Mike, and we'll see what we can do. Upcoming events. The big thing that I want everybody to be aware of is this Saturday. You probably have seen the email. We are having our annual picnic at Shawnee Mission Park, which is in Shawnee, Kansas. Please, if you haven't already, RSVP to Kevin Neely, so you can get a good number accounts for the number of burgers and dogs and eat setups that we need. Grilled hamburgers and hot dogs, condiments, napkins, and plates provided by the club. The members will bring sides or dessert, and bring your own drinks. We don't provide any drinks, and none of them can be alcohol. That's not allowed in the park. But we usually, even on a warm day, we're right off the water. We're under a shelter, so we've got shade and the breeze off the water. I've never been there where it was unbearably uncomfortable. So don't think it's going to be uncomfortable. Just come on out. We'll visit and we'll have some good conversation, and we'll talk things even other than wood trade. Sure. Let's see. The July demo is going to be on carving a basket weed by Tim Gardner, Kingside. So this is something I'm real interested in seeing. I haven't seen this demoed at all, so I'm looking forward to that. And then our August and September demos, and the reason I didn't put specifics on here is because I'm not sure for sure if Anthony's going to be doing in August, or we'll be pushing him out to September. But between Anthony and Don Brent, they've got 2 more demonstrations for us later in the year. I think I already told you that Anthony's bowl turning class will be rescheduled again in the future. So if he drives out for me, I'll look for more information on that. And last but not least, this is for Ann in Texas. She does not want you to forget about Southwest Association of Turners, or SWAT Symposium, that's coming up August 22nd through 24th in Waco, Texas.
Ann heard, she's on Zoom.
I am.
So she knows you said that.
All right. I knew she told me. If you have any questions or anything, Mike's been to that symposium several times. He's going again this year. He knows it all. So talk to Mike. If you want a flyer on that symposium, let me know. I've got the information from Ann that I look forward to. Last thing, information and resources. Are you looking for project information, instructions, or ideas? Check out the club library. It's right back there behind the book. It says library. If you are an AAW member, there are lots of resources on the AAW website. I get emails constantly of different things that they're offering. So take advantage of that when you can. And then for just general information about the club, to me, the best place is to go to our website, KCWT.org. And in the left-hand column is just scroll through that, and it'll tell you all the upcoming things. There's also links to calendar events and things like that. We also have the monthly wood chips newsletter that should be getting emailed to you. If you're having problems getting that, let me know. Or ask one of the board members. If I can get board members that are here that are raising their hands, what we look like. Oh, there's not any others here. Okay. That's it, folks. So I would normally say I'm getting ready for Phil's safety minute. And let's see, do we have a slide? Right there. Okay. Remember this guy, and every time you see his face, think safety, and you'll be good. All right. So that is our safety minute for tonight.
Safety set.
What a real short safety?
I do want a real short safety.
An example of how quickly things can go south. Some of you may have heard the story. Last fall, late November, remember I was trying to finish up a hollow one that I had promised out for Christmas. And I sometimes use the microwave to dry it. And I have a microwave that I'm pretty sure Noah used, it's like a 19. I think it's very big. And it's pretty primitive, but the buttons on it are so old that I just get in the habit of pushing 111 because it's just too hard to push in anything else. So I'll put in a hollow form or whatever I'm doing, push 111, hit the button, walk away from it. I usually set a timer on my phone so that it goes off to remind me to do it again. So 6 or 7 or 8 times during the day, I'll do that, slowly dry the bowl. Well, on the last time that I did it that day, I thought I pushed 111. Came into the shop the next day and it smelled like really, really bad burnt popcorn. And evidently, all I could figure is I punched 1111, which is a big difference. And I opened up, I couldn't figure out what the smell was. I thought I had an electrical fire involved somewhere. I was searching everywhere for it. And I just happened to walk by the microwave and remember that I opened the door and the smell hit me. Well, it burned a hole about the size of a quarter at the bottom of the hollow. And there was still a red ember in there after that long. So the only thing that saved my shop was the fact that the door was closed, there wasn't enough oxygen for it to go the rest of the way. So that's how close things can go really, really south. So it caused a lot more repair work in order to get the thing done and finished in a way that I could do it for the thing. But anyway, I thought I'd share that.
I've heard more than one woodturner talk about getting in trouble from their wife for trying to drive into the microwave in the house. So have it hold the microwave if you're driving. Okay, that being said, thank you, Don. Appreciate it. Always think safety when you're on the way. Now moving right along, let's just get into our discussion on the CNC. It's something that I am not familiar with, so I'm sure I'll learn a lot. Gary Mundhenke.
You have both mics on Gary?
The mute slide button on the top. There you go.
But we did. There we go. Okay. Sorry. So I'm here to talk a little bit about the CNC. Specifically, we make these. So I think everyone's seen these, right? You kind of around. This is the short one. This is a short version. This is the motorcycle one, and then we make longer ones that are this is not finished yet. A little bit longer.
So I'm gonna step through, how we make it. So what is the CNC? Stand for Computer Numerically Controlled Computing. That's the CNC acronym. The machine that I have at home personally, and I'll bring up a picture in a couple minutes. Has a for flat machining. It's 4x5, and it has a rotary lathe attachment on it, and that'll allow for a 12-inch diameter mold or really big spindles, and by approximately 30 inches long. So, give you what idea what the one I have, what I can make that. And of course, the guild has one back here. I don't know if you ever wandered back where they have it. It's a Legacy Maverick. It's probably a little more heavy duty industrial grade than the one I have. That bed is 3x5, and for doing the lathe on that one, we'll do.
Chris, could you move the camera to show Gary's head a little bit more? Yours, or could you crouch down? Yeah, that's better. Thank you.
Okay, so the one here, it'll do roughly 10 inches diameter, 16 inches long. So it's double the length of mine, but I'm not sure where you can something that long anyway. Because one of the things, turning on manually, like starting to go long, especially spindle start to sag in the middle and then steady resting like that, which are kind of difficult to do on the CNC. Having dollars to work around. Anyway, so I'll maybe switch to my computer. Hello. Here. Okay. Well, so this is the machine I have. The brand name is Avid CNC. This is the front of it here, and the spindle basically that the router that holds basically like a router, electrical router. But this is my table, and then I'll show you on the back side here the rotary portion. This is my basement, and one of the reasons I purchased the Avid is it's all, you can see that it's all extruded aluminum pieces, so it comes in a kit you put it together yourself. So I could get it in my basement. The one that the guild has here, more industrial grade, but the basement, if you go back and look at it maybe during the break, it's all welded together. So it is a solid, heavy piece that you need a forklift to move it around. And so that would not work very well in my basement. Although I know at least one person with the one that's here has the same model and did in their basement, but I'm not sure how. So I think the next picture is, so this is the turning, of course, this is the back side from the photo. So it's fairly similar to what you think about in a by manually. There's a chuck on one end, and a flag center on the other. This plate here, there's two pins. You can see there's two tracks here. So these pins, you pull the pins up, you can move it back and forth depending on the length of your piece to work on. So, for example, if you're doing a real short spindle or bowl, move it way up here, and have the line center that close by. The chuck right here. You may be looking at this, doesn't look like stuff. And yes, this is actually a metalwork stuff. And then you're probably wondering, well, why is it on a wood CNC? The reason is because CNC blades for wood turning are not high volume seller. So we developed a specific one for wood turning. The volume, the sales is not there because this stuff, if you see, it's also pretty big. There's a sense in the back, there's an encoder, so degrees turning it's expensive and read. So it's a special stuff that is gear driven and it's not they basically just go with a metal one. So and once again, this only turns at the maximum turn rate is 100 RPM. So very slow, compared to what you're used to on a normal wood turning blade. So in terms of planting and things like that, it goes pretty slow. So you're not really worried about, the clamps are not, normally you're like you're trying to clamp, you want the clamp just about closed when you're wood turning. Well, here obviously you can see that you don't do that here. So another interesting thing when I'm trying to hold something in, when you have I can use the standard pipe. You never use one of these to hold a bowl. Faceless thing. But once again, it's only 100 RPM is the maximum. Usually it's turning slower than that, probably 20 to 30 RPM. So 3 drywall screws to the pipe hanger is more than plenty. So yeah, so there's some differences here, compared to what you use with traditional wood.
You want that shut up for a 6 month or because of the straight back.
Yeah, no, it really would not work. There's an encoder in there, it's reading degrees, so no, it would not. With the service. Yeah, yeah. And I actually have a sample I'll show at the end where I have to use the wood turning chuck. I'll skip to that.
Does that chuck come with different jaws?
No, there's only one up again. It's yeah, there's 2 sets of jaws. This is for holding a cylinder, and then it's the opposite, like mortise versus the tenon. So there's another set of jaws that I have that open outwards that have you can see it here. There's serrations here to hold. There's a couple small crevices. In fact, when some of you guys that have been finishing these off, you can see 3 marks here. There's 3 serration marks. So yeah, there's another set that I can replace for whether I'm doing mortise or a tenon in the whole way. But other than that, no, there's what you got here is what you got. But once again, I can take a pipe and I can clamp it in there too. It's just a straight pipe, a little nipple, if you can buy it. So yeah, you've got to sometimes kind of work around. And you can see there's 3 steps in the stuff too. So, depending on the diameter you're trying to hold in, you've got a couple of knots. Although then you have to put it in deeper and you've got to worry about outside trying to get support. So that's kind of the basic of the machine that I'm using. So let's talk about software. Of course, you got software too. So the software I use for the actual setting it up, programming, designing is the company called Vetric, and the software I use is Spire. And they're a company based in England. They probably got 80% of the market for wood carving CNC. The other big one would be AutoCAD. They got a couple different packages that also work. They're considerably more money than Vetric. Vetric is pretty much for wood. Where AutoCAD, they're for all kinds of, metal turning, metal machining, all kinds of electronics, everything. So that's the actual software that's required. We'll go through it a little bit. That actually programs it and develops the code to cut. It's called C code. That's the actual program that cuts the various pieces out there. So after it Spire comes up with a program, then it's fed into another program that's actually part of the machine. That's what I use is Mach 4, it's called. And that's the actual interprets all the instructions of actually where to move the spindle and where the cutter is. So I'll pull up a sample of that anyway too. So you can follow it. Yeah. Yeah. Now Spire, can program with it, once it'll develop the code. Then that file is read by Mach 4. Actually, Mach 4 is what actually instructs the machine how to move and where to move. So it's actually two programs. The one that's in the guild here uses, they have a small machine that also, it uses an older version, Mach 3, and the big new one they got is a proprietary software. Family. But they still use Aspire for the programming, but the actual machine code, they don't use Mach 4, they use proprietary one like it. So this is a little screenshot of Mach 4. So when this runs, there's a button here, the green button on the arrow is, that is where you actually click on the screen and that starts the machine going. So you load a program in here and it'll come up and then you make sure you got the right bit in and get everything set up. You got, this, piece in the lathe and then you hit the button and start running. There's various adjustments, speed rate you can adjust, rapid move rates, when you're jogging it by hand, how fast it is. And then you can set the spindle RPM. The spindle RPM can be in the program, but you can also manually set it here. Like maybe you're not sure when you start a new program, well, I'm going to run a little slow and see if it, if you don't want to crash. And then if it looks like it's running, right, you can get up there to go a little faster. I do that frequently when I'm doing GC. Sometimes I'll start out slow and then I'll speed it up and then look at it well. But just to give you an idea what the screen looks like in my Mach 4.
And that's Mach 14 with your CNC machine?
It did, yes. Now it's Aspire and I have to buy it. So
And is that a yearly license for?
Mach 4 was one time fee, so I get upgrades, no charge. Aspire, I purchased it, but it's kind of interesting because it actually is almost like a yearly license. You do upgrade every 2 to 3 years and you charge. So you're basically, you got to almost count every 2 years or so. I think it was $200, I think, every 2 years to upgrade. You don't have to, you can continue using your own version of that. Models won't work. Things like that. So that one, you can almost consider that almost like a heavy place. So now I'm going to pull up, this is Aspire here. And I'll pull up the model here. So, there's a couple really off here. So, the first thing you do when you set it up, they'll ask you, if you're doing a rotary job, they'll ask you for the dimensions. These are 28 inches long. It's 1 in decimal 0.92, but it's 1 in 15/16, one in what that decimal is. So that's the diameter, and then basically it'll ask you where your zero position is. But status is usually use the center of the cylinder, and it's basically what side you're going to start on. So when it's held in place on the lathe, are you going to start here? Is that 0 or is it 0? When you go. So basically, you put in the size here, and so what you got here, this square, is actually, so one of the things when you work with design, so this is a cylinder, obviously. So what they do is your cylinder is when you're doing a design, it's flat. So when you finish with it, so if you're cutting grooves, you're going to cut a groove in flat, and then it'll be, at the end, it'll be as if you curl it around. It's a concept that's sometimes hard to understand, but you're working with it as a flat when you're designing it. And then at the very end, you'll see it'll eventually come out into the round object. So it makes it probably easier to design rather than trying to work on a cylinder. if you're working on a flat, I want to cut a groove here, you know, cut a radius in here. So, that's one of the things that sometimes people have trouble, the concept of it working, first in flat. So we'll turn a couple more layers on. So, and you can see what this is, if you recognize it, that is from the center line, it's the top half, it's basically the profile. Look at that. So this is what I designed. You can see there's a grid here that helps you, set it up dimension-wise. So this point here and this point here would be the center point here, and the center point here. And then, as you can see, you've got the curve here, these two little bumps here. You got this part where it doesn't have the grooves in this layer, and two bumps, and then the radius down here. Okay, so the first thing we've got here are flat cuts. So basically, that is anywhere that's not a curved surface. So these grooves, for example, the cutter is just going to come in, and this is just going to rotate around and cut the pretty. It's, the simplest cuts there are. Same thing right here. The cutter is going to come in, and it's going to turn 360 degrees, cut it. These get a little more complicated, so because they're curved. And at one time, this was curved also. Remember, the original design was all, and that was a little more complicated too. Really nice. Now we went to a flat one. They cut some time out too, quite a bit of time to cutting straight, flat, and cut real fast. Yeah. So that's basically the profile set up, and then these are the cuts, purple files, where, so if you notice, it goes past the model. So this line, this is the model. This is when you lay this out flat. When you're doing these, because the cutter is round, you've actually got it, you can't just go 360 degrees, you got to go a little past. Otherwise, you'll have, because your radius is cutter, if it stops, you got your radius is cutter here will not go all the way. So you've got to actually go past it. So that's why you see me set it up a little higher and lower past the model. Is that what everybody's talking about? I go, yeah, they have instruction on it, but it's basically, you can calculate the diameter. These grooves are 1/8 cutter. So you take, the radius of a 1/8 cutter, you can calculate exactly how much you go, but the easiest thing is just go a good amount past, because it's drilling time in 10 seconds, so you just cut past it and then make sure you got it way through. Multiple cutters, multiple bits for that. That one. Yeah. So okay, that's a good point. I'll get into that. So basically, for this, there's 3 cutters that I use. I could speed it up a little bit and use some bigger cutters than some flat, but I'm kind of lazy and I don't want to change cutters more than I have to, so I do most of it with a 1/4 inch end mill. So this is the workhorse that does probably 80% of the cutting up, probably 90%. It's basically the carbide bit, it's a 1/4 inch end mill. It's flat on the top, start carbide. This is an upcut. So very, very good point. There are upcut and downcut cutters. The downcut basically forces the sawdust or the cuttings down into the workpiece, where this one's an upcut. So when it's cutting, it puts the chips and sawdust out. The advantage of a downcut, if you're cutting flat work, for example, like plywood, and say you got a sheet of plywood down and you're cutting a circle. Well, the downcut will pack the sawdust. So when you cut the circle, well, when you get to the end, you've got a loose piece and you got this thing, the bit's going to catch the circle and maybe flip it out or, do something ugly or bad. So a downcut will actually pack the the chips in. So when it completes the cut, it'll still be in place. The other advantage of down cut is, when you're cutting, I'm going to use plywood as an example. A down cut on the top surface, it'll, you won't be tearing up the plywood, where an upcut will tend to have a lot of tear out. Yeah. So, whether you use an upcut or down cut is really depending what you're doing. So.
Is that just because of I assume the team goes to every time, but other.
Yeah. Yeah. There's no reverse on the routing. It's plywood. So that's, yeah, there's only one, there's no reverse, like, yeah. So that does 90% of the cutting on this. Then we have a 1/8 bit, it's also an upcut, and that's to do the grooves here. So that doesn't get a lot of use. And then the other one, the last one, is it's called a tapered follow. So this is the follow is a 0.75 millimeter follow. And that is the one, you'll see I got some film, they'll cut all the curves. So basically, it's a very small bit. You get a real nice curve. It'll make 360, and then it'll go forward a little bit. So basically, this curve, what looks like it's a raised step. If you look at the microscope, little microscopic step there. It's signal, but a little standing by the team that cuts it off. So I'll pass these around, look at the bits. I'm in the purple holder. They are sharp, so please be careful. Maybe something fair, cut some fingers. Yes, for sure. So also, it's interesting, so how many have we made so far? 274 so far. We've got 119. So all 74 is still the original router bit. So they're still cut and fine. So just to give you an idea, it's not about you will last quite a while. But once again, we're cutting maple, and this cuts very nice. I think we've got some hickory ones back there that may tear up the router bit a little more.
So once you had your software all set up and it's set up, ready to go, how long does it take for you to start? And
I won't show that in the model, but just to give you an answer now, it's about 45 minutes, roughly a little less than that, 40. There probably at some point I'm going to sit and figure I can optimize it, get it down a little more. There's a couple things I can do. I've got the program going, it's working good, so I don't want to necessarily screw with a lot to some trial and error getting going. So now that I guess we've got enough for the year, we got a little breathing room. I'll probably over the next couple of months play around with it a little more, and I can probably optimize it a little more and go a little faster.
so are you like Don, and you're gonna just punch it in and then walk away and have coffee or do something else while his microwave is
that is dangerous. Oh, I do walk away from it. What I do though is mount it on my table. I have a camera, so that my cell phone I can be watching.
Okay.
So I'm on some Facebook groups with people who have something that a bit broke or something. It's on fire,
Yeah.
Because if you don't have a cutter bit, it breaks and it's just trying to solid steel the wood. It can be fire. So.
Yeah.
But I have a camera, and a lot of times I got my shop in the basement, so a lot of times I'm doing other things while I'm playing. I just want to point out one of the things you should not do. So this is more of a traditional router bit. It's got a bearing power on it. So if you're cutting something, you add your normal hand router. So you cannot. This would be definitely using one with the bearing power. Because the router, the CNC router will go where it wants to go. And if that bearing in the way, it can continue to vibrate. So these are something you never want to use.
Is there different speeds on the router piece?
Yes.
Different speeds. They you have to fix them with the bits, you accommodate the speed with the bit.
Yep. And also the type of wood and the type of cut. So, you know, for some people, I think, oh, you just press a button, you know, that's not woodwork. But I mean, just like any other woodwork, you've got to deal with, the, you know, the RPM of the bit, the speed rate of the bit. So that's a cut, there's a lot of factors that go into it. So it's not really just, you don't have to know anything about wood. Once again, if you cut a softwood versus a hardwood, you cut with the grain, against the grain, across the grain, you know, you're gonna get all kinds of different, cuts with this thing.
And that's all programmed. So
Yes.
once you get it started, you can put the button. And,
Once you have it dialed in, yeah. And a lot of times it takes an experimentation, or if you know the wood, you know, I work a lot because I get it free, I get a lot of ash. So I'm getting very familiar with, you know, how ash will cut, because so many people are cutting trees down on here, you know, that I will ask for or whatever, so. That's probably one of my big things I cut, and I'm getting those, you know, so I know how it cuts.
do they have different bits for like, really? Like, one of the like, polo.
Yeah, there's specific bits for acrylic, but not for other wood. So there's actually bits for cutting glass too. I mean, yeah, the single flue and there's bits for cutting plastic, for foam, there's all kinds, and there's actually an attachment gives a nice cut foam where you actually have 0 RPM on a router, and it'll cut a pattern on the foam too. But yeah, some acrylics have a different flute to, you know, kind of like when you're turning it on traditionally, so you know, chip out, you know, so it's kind of like, I think acrylic, what is it, negative rate, I mean, the negative rate, scrapers or something, or carbide or something. Or how it's going, I think, so there's
What would sales be in cutting wood? I mean, imagine that it's acrylic and stuff, and pointed out.
yeah, and so you can go down to fairly on the RPM of the router. I mean, mine will go as high as 24,000 RPM, and it'll go as low as, I think, 600. You can slow it down, so, and once again, if you're cutting acrylic or plexiglass, I mean, those, you gotta, you gotta watch it build up, and there are special cutters that sort of, it doesn't melt and just go out and melt the plastic. There is a lot. Okay, so moving on with our, so all the purple flat cuts that are fairly simple, once again, flat here. So those are simple cuts, and the 3D cuts are the ones that are,
What's he think?
oh, okay. Flip the camera, please.
I think that's it. She hasn't seen. Just like, I don't know.
Are you able to flip the camera to the computer? Okay, okay.
Just give us.
So I while we went on here, I turned this layer on. 3D cut, which is the, what is it, the fluorescent, blue, whatever. So those are areas where, the real small ones, and, you know, we try not to do as many areas as possible. You can see that the head is tiny. It's a fairly slow cut, so, it doesn't hog it out like when we need to, so we only try to use it so we can. And that's the curve. So basically, you block out anything, wherever you're gonna cut the small one with the 3D cuts, because I have a label here. So basically, the cuts are kind of set up on here now. So that's the design side, which is right here. Now we switch over to where we set up the machine. And this is where we then tell it, you know, what cutter we're going to use, what we're going to cut in.
Layers based on the cutter.
No, not totally. It's a type of cut. The 1/8 and the quarter are in the same layer, because it's just a cut. Basically, both are just a cut, and it's just going straight across, and same thing here, cut either that way or straight across. It's simple cuts are in one layer. The complex cuts, which is what that one is, which is getting the curves and all the radius here. That's awesome. Okay, so once that's the design is in there, then we go through the set of cuts, so you can select the various colors, like I can select the octave here, and you can see it changes. You can select all of them. You can tell it if you want to do a cut, which I've actually already done. So, and that would be the 3D reference. So I'll take you through the cuts. So the first one is the flat between the two curves and bumps, and that'll be right here, here and here. That's the very first one that's going to cut. So I've got that set up, and here's a quick simulation of it. Okay, so this is your basic cylinder here. Oh, and by the way, so this is the way the stock square sits in the club here. We got some volunteers that have turned from a square to a basic round. So I did have actually a program on CNC that actually cut this from a square to a round, but that saved me some time and the goodness of some volunteers. Yeah, it helps. Yeah, I mean, I could do it. It's taking time. Yeah, so it's spreading the work around a little. So I appreciate it. We don't want to do that. Yeah, that's good. Okay, so the first one, we're going to cut the first groove there. So if you saw it was flat, like it was in the design, and then it cut it real fast, and then so those are the first two that we do when we cut it.
Does it also give you the time that it takes to do that?
Yep, I'll show you that. That would be right here. So the flat between the two took 1:36, like where it's highlighted right here. So that shows the total machine time, 48 minutes and 2 seconds. That's not exact because some of it depends how fast I am. Like when I got to change business things, so you know it's approximate. You can't necessarily bank on it. It's going to take exactly 48 minutes and 2 seconds. So that is the first cut. So then the second cut. So that is the, not sure why it's off scale, but that is cutting the middle. Stuff here. That's right. No. Ooh, there you go. So that is cutting this. So that actually, I'll run that in, but when I cut these, it cut it this way. So the machine rotated. When I cut this one, and I'll show it when I have some video back and cutting on the machine, it actually cuts this way and indexes a couple of degrees. So because it's only and it can move past to this screen. So then the next step is this main area here. Yep. 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 Oh, that was the first pass, then this will take a second pass. So it'll cut the same area. here. So basically, when I'm cutting with a 1/4 inch, router bit, they recommend, it's called depth of cut. They recommend going half the diameter, so the maximum you really should cut in depth would be about 1 inch and 1/4 inch. You know, and once again, you can play around, some people go in first, you know, you take a chance of breaking the cutter, so it's also, you know, how much you want to risk. And the deeper you cut, you know, you're gonna get rougher cuts and stuff, too, the more you try to hog out in one pass. So then we'll go to the 3D rough, and that is grafting it. So basically, before we do the 3D, the curve, it will cut like where this is going to be curved, or this is going to be curved like here. It will first try to get as much as possible with a 1/4 inch end mill. So it's less work with the small bit. So it's called a rough cut, basically, to get it close to the radius, but not the finished cut. So that's what we do next. So that's how you can see it similar to this. Look, you can see right here, there's the steps are here. And here you can see the steps are here. Basically roughed it out. Then we'll go to this is where it cuts. Next step is where it cuts it. There's a little bit of stub in here. So, you know, there's a crew of volunteers that came in here to finish it off and basically sand it and cut these off. So, you know, it's a balancing act of how small to make this, which is, you know, I'm sure all of you felt with how, you know, before you cut it off and you got it, you're holding it out. With the CNC router, you can't hold it and you cut this off. You can't kind of dangerous. I kind of like using my fingers and stuff. So I have to make a balance of how much here to cut off, where we're still stable, but yet not leaving a lot for the crew here that finishes a lot to have to cut off and stuff. So I'm trying to get most of it, but I wanted it so stable it wouldn't flex or break off or something. So it's just basically, you know, I can trial and error. Can I take off more for apps, but you know, I don't want to flexing breaking off either scrapping them. So, and I think the amount we've taken off is worth it. It works, right? It's my own thing there. If everyone's happy with it. Okay, so then the last, well, we got then the grooves on the handle. So that cuts these grooves in, and that's, you know, it's only a minute or so time. And then the last thing is the final 3D finish with the little paper ball on it. There you have it. And that's actually the short time of what I've done with the apple model. If you're wondering why this big piece is put out here, I basically cut the model into this long one, just short. So yeah. So I just demoed the motorcycle. So that's the finished piece. So I'll take you through the whole thing. You'll see it cut. Pull it down a little bit here. You can see it. So you can see it cutting. 2 passes on the middle here. Now it's going to go to this section, cutting this 1 pass. Now it's going to cut the second pass. Then it's going to cut the grooves here. And it cuts the grooves here. Now it's cutting the final cut with the curves. It's about done, there we go.
Oh, boy.
So from there, it looks good, which, it pretty much does. Then you would, save the code, which is right here, save the full path. It'll save it, now pull the file. It'll save it, hold up. So what comes out of it, just out of that code. So this is the actual program, it's better than Mach 4. So, there's some stuff, anything in parentheses, kind of like comments, information, that's at the top here. But where you get to the meat potatoes and code. So basically, every one of these is a move. So, and, don't ask me what everyone stands for. So, but it's,
Program.
yes, and it is, 2,822 lines of code, so. It's not a super big flutter, my fund is a couple 100,000. It's relatively small. But every line here is a move of the CNC router, I want to go from this position or this position. And there's a few in there that change RPM or anything like that. So basically, that's what Aspire does here. So it will set this code up. And so then you take this file, that is, it'll save it. And then you CNC will open up Mach 4 and you load that file I just set up in the G code. And then it'll run it on the router. So let's get a couple pictures here of what's running on the machine. Okay, it's down here. So that is kind of, yeah, the think of a loud whining. So that's the first cut, cutting the two grooves. Okay, so that's the first. Then we'll get to the second cut here, and that's cutting the flat. Now you'll see a different direction of the movement. But that's going this way now. You can cut that in the more direction. Basically, yes. And some woods you would have trouble, once again, it's maple and it might feel nice either direction. So it's not a problem. On different woods, that would be a problem. You have to possibly do it all in one direction, depending on the grain. Probably over the famous one, have to really the grain. So.
Do you have to calibrate the machine so that it knows where through windows and you might?
Yes, okay, I'll show you the pictures there. I've got some. So next to, I should have showed it when I brought up the plate, but this is a plate, and there's a little magnetic probe that goes on the edge of the router that sticks to it. So there's a Mach 4, it tells you 0. So this plate is basically, if you calculate when it touches this electro plate and wires, and they'll complete a circuit when the router, it'll move down real slow and touch the plate, and it'll close the circuit, so it knows where the end of the router is, and it'll calculate where that is in relation to the center line of the piece.
So how do you know it was good?
Okay. So, yeah. So that's the Z depth, which is up and down how high it is. And then on Y, this is so this is where I set it, so it knows when it hits the touch point, it knows where the center line is going up and down this way. So what I move it in is where I want the X, which is this direction. So I jog it over where right here, I'll set this to 0. So I'll jog the router bit over to this position. Because I know this is helmet chuck, and I know just by trial and error, I need to be about 3/4 of an inch from the edge. So I'll jog the thing over. They'll get to here, and then in my coordinate screen where the X is, I'll hit that 0 point. I'll hit 0. So that's what you're seeing right there. And then just another view of it. So that I position to 0, but when it hits that touch plate, that also does 2 steps. It touches down on the touch plate, and then it'll go to one side. So it knows where the bit is. So it'll know where the center lift plate is. So the touch plate will know what height it is and where it is here. And I set it where the 0 is in this place. Everybody understand that? It's 3 dimensions. You got to 0 out. Yeah, I manually set the X. It automatically sets the Y and the Z. Okay, so this is what I want to show you. This is how close it gets to this fairly quick in my machine. As you can see, the chuck here, there's not a lot of clearance with the collet here. But once again, it's very exact. So as long as I'm 8 of an inch, you can see the inch, make sure it's clear, so clear. So I just want to show you the tight fit, but it's CNC, it's very repeatable. Okay, I'll go quickly through the grooves in the handle. CNC. These are nice quick cuts. They're fairly short.
The speed that your friend is going through
That's correct. Well, and you know, this cuts, if you know, it's very beautiful.
running fast.
You know, this is a 1/8 fit, so we can break it. So it's not super beefy, so, you know,
Your friend is running a little fast.
yeah. Or I could take a chance. You know, I'd rather run it slow. I mean, it's only a little over a minute, so, you know, I could go to 2 minutes, but take a chance of breaking a bit, you know. And
What is the field?
oh, that's just, I got some wood stored underneath, so I just wanted to keep the sawdust and chips off my wood. So it kind of just falls off the side. The little part. The underneath the table. Okay, I'll say a quick thing that's this here. So this is going from the 1/8 to the Z bit. This is what I try to minimize. That in the platform. So you put the probe on, and I hit the button to go, I'm going to drag it over, and I'll hit the button to go down, and it'll touch the touch plate and complete the circuit, so it knows, because if you look at it, the length of these bits is very different. So the height would be 0, the router is going to be lower on this. We need to cut this right here. So if you notice the pallet, it goes 360 degrees in the reverse direction. So it doesn't, you can set it up to continue to spin, but it takes a little extra programming. So it goes one way and then reverse. That's the default direction. So that is why, you can see it goes in both directions. To use any folder like this, where there's bars, are, you know, the bars are in one direction. So if I was to hold the workpiece, you got to be very careful because it goes in both directions. But this is set up to a manual lathe where it's always spinning in the same direction, you know, other than the workpiece. But you know, one of these the bars that are slanted to dig in with a CNC, when it's going both directions, it can flip it. And, you know, something you got to be careful of. Like them. So basically, that's kind of the steps what's going on here. I just want to talk a little bit about some of the things that can't do undercuts, for example. So you know, like manual lathe undercut, doing a bowl, you can hollow out a bowl. Obviously, on the lathe portion of it, it's all on the outside surface if I'm doing the bowl. So if I want to do the inside of the bowl, I got to take it off the lathe and put it on the table and cut it off on a flat table. So you can still do it, but the second operation, I got to mount it and make it down. It also traditionally it's not a true 4-axis machine. So when it cuts, the route of it always stays in one position. You know, it can move this way and move this way, but it does not move to the side. There's ways of working around it with the software that I have, but a true 3D axis machine will move and we'll do undercuts and we'll move in all three directions. So it's one. The software that I have on the KCWT machine does not do a 2D movement. So that's something that really can't be done either. There's no tilt with it or anything. It's just straight up and down. Also, I kind of said before, you're also one of the things you can do on a manually. You know, if you're cutting, you really can't do things like finials on here and stuff. Something really thin that you maybe as you're getting thin, you're holding with your hand, and it's pointing. Once again, rather than comes down, it's plunging and flying, and anything really small in here on break. Not to say you actually can't do it. There's ways of doing it, but it's probably better off to do one by hand than trying to do that on a CNC. So also it's pretty low RPM, so maximum speed is 100 RPM. So that's pretty low speed. Probably a little too low speed for sanding. So that's the other thing that really don't like. So that's pretty much it with the how this. I've got a couple samples I thought I'd show you quickly of the two things that you can do to kind of keep your types of food. To cut, I think there's some samples to cut, some spiral things like this. So can you do this on a manual lathe? Yeah, but it's a lot of work that I can slow. This cut was, I don't know, maybe 5 minutes. Yeah. And I have a router bit that you can change. Basically, you can tell it the speed. To go along with that, you can cut true. I did a, which I know you can do it on a manual lathe too. But, so to answer your question earlier about putting a big mark chuck or something on, to cut this, because it was so thin, I actually put a chuck on both ends. Because normally when you have a live center, you're pressing, So when you press, it kind of, I can little bit a bunch before I got a good one. So that one I put 2 chunks in, so there's no pressure, so cutting, so. Yeah, held it both firmly and, so, you know, that's something you can do. I made a stand once, little rope. This is actually kind of unique too because this is actually tapered. It's hard to tell, but it's wider and it gets narrower, it gets wider again. So this is not just a straight cut like this. That was cool. And I carved some. This is just a sample I did. Time, so there are a couple pieces glued together, but it can also do carving and things out of order. Very easy to cut threads. Yeah, so the interesting thing, this is a deep bit cut. You know, I know quite a few of you have projects to threads, and they're usually fairly fine, long threads. Well, this is cut real big threads. I mean, I can get some big sellers and really big threads.
But you can't hit the item.
What is that?
You cut the item for
The knot, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, so to cut the knot, we're talking about turning, and that's not, that'd be on a flat table. But basically, you would mount the nut on the table, and there's a bit that'll come in, and it actually has a program in there to come in and cut advance. So yes, you can do both, 2 separate operations, but we're mostly turning about the lake side, so that's the end of the plan. A couple others, I brought these in before, so some of you have seen them, but, you know, I did a bowl here with diamond plate. That's the week, although I think we're gonna have a presentation next week, but we'll see yours entirely. But yeah, I could do a basket pattern, stuff like this. And, you can cut various different, patterns and stuff. So once again, something like this, if you were doing it, maybe like 5 later invention pretty small. So that's a, you know, this took a few minutes to cut on time or 5 minutes. And I think I brought this in before. I made an handle, quite a lobular, and it's tapered to around here. So I kind of was playing around with it, trying to make one, and I kind of like it because I get my saw on it and different. But you know, this was done on a rotary on the lake, and you know, this is like when I cut the grooves, but it indexed out and kept advancing and do very different shapes like that. And this would be fairly difficult once again if you want to just on a traditional machine. And it's deeper here and it tapers off, so we're 3 triangles. So that's another item that I thought I'd bring in. So that's pretty much just what I have to present. Yeah, a lot of information here, so I'm around. If you got questions?
How long has it been playing with the?
I had the CNC probably 3-4 years now. I bought it during COVID. Basically, I kind of joked about this. I had a pretty fancy motorcycle, and I retired. I'm not riding much anymore, so I sold my motorcycle once. So that's why I got the fun to buy it on the wild part.
The challenge with this whole project with KCWT is the chief demand that they all do essentially come together. And the guy who was making one at Institute Community College had a lathe duplicator and basically just scraped them out and they looked like. But this is amazing. There's no, you know, making one or something is pretty easy, but making, you know, 7 or 4 of them.
And like they try various things like a duplicator and various techniques there, right? Yeah, by hand.
Yeah, and it would not have, she was throwing out the top, you know, he started to do this fight. So clearly, you know, he'll back.
Well, and something that I realized when we were talking about it, 70 ton and the chasing sends out 3 times difference on every one of that. 210 times you doing this. Thank you. I was just going to say the product, because it took a little while to get there.
But yeah,
that's a couple of the races, so thank you.
I've got the program locked in, so, keep running.
So, your presentation, Jeremy, thank you. If you have any questions for Jeremy?
Repeat the question, so
It would be hard to get if I take it off. So you're saying like, you know, run it one bit. Yeah, and then switch. Yeah, I don't think I could get it. It's possible I have to put stops in and stuff and you know, we're talking wood. You know, metal, maybe I could be a little more, you know, it's more consistent, but, cause even some of these I've noticed, if I cut it, you know, it is wood, sometimes, you know, after I cut it, it's, you know, it's changing sometimes, it's 12, it's dry, you know, and stuff, so I probably wouldn't, yeah, I don't think that would work.
Can you use wet wood at all?
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah, it's not,
It doesn't have to be still.
no. Now, what you gotta be careful, you know, as you get longer here, you're clamping either end, and, you know, if it's something wet, it's sag, you know, like the piece here, you can put a 16-inch piece, one of these, and, you know, you really can't put a steady rest in the middle, because, you know, you see, it's gonna plow right through it and break your steady, or break your steady rest, you know, it doesn't have any intelligence, you have to work around it, so if you actually put a 16-inch piece in here, you know, something this diameter, you're gonna have some drooping in the middle, I think, so if you're cutting, it's probably not gonna real true, you know, so, and that's the same thing, you know, faster RPM, we all know, you know, you're gonna sometimes get whipping around too.
That's well. Thank you. Gary, so tell us what our challenge is for next week. I'm glad you said that because I thought about it. Keep that challenge.
Well, I thought it would be, something that might, you know, get a little more marketing in the fleet, so what I'm gonna suggest is the challenge for next month, try to make the time small in the Christmas month. And I'm hoping maybe at Christmas, go to the police and maybe get some additional sales of some baton. So maybe eventually one come up with some, and maybe consider it, especially tonight, going into the club where Mike can take it to the police maybe this fall and see if we can buy there. We may get additional revenue. And once we have a break time, it'll be the process. Yeah, something small, it would have to be fairly, you know, a lot of it.
There are a lot of little small pieces of nice wood back there on the shelves and stuff. So feel free to use those. All right.
Everyone comes up.
Okay. We'll take a short break here. We'll have some refreshments and chat in a while. And while we gather back here in about 10 minutes, and we'll get started on the challenge table first, and then we'll go to the show and tell. Gary will be up here if anybody's got any questions for me. Certainly come up here and ask them.
you can go buy one of those, Ed?
No. Son got that. He got a small one.
Does he really? Cool.
He came up with this silhouette, Chicago Skyrim. Yeah.